All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the podcast. We have a good friend on this episode. His name's Dillan Drake. He is a additive manufacturing consultant. He has several different additive manufacturing degrees or jobs that we'll be going through today. He also has a bachelor's in business administration. Dillan Drake, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, Jake. Nice to be here. Thank you.
So, Dillan, a lot of where we like to get started is basically, because this podcast we feel like will hopefully help a lot of high school students going into college or pursuing a degree. When you were in that high school age, looking forward, this bright future ahead of you, what did you want to do? What did you picture for your life? And how did that, help you transition into your career, or maybe led you astray from your career?
Oh boy, laying it on thick. So I guess I came out of high school very, what's the word? Rambunctious. I didn't go straight into, I didn't go straight into college, and I was trying to find my own niche whenever I had this mindset of me being rich but no idea how to get there. So just constantly trying to basically hustle on the side. Got caught up in a few pyramid schemes because I was a stupid kid and really trying to find my own niche.
Don't we all?
I was just going to say the same thing. Everybody's been there.
At one point in my life, someone convinced me to invest in Tron. I'm not going to say who, but it hasn't gone anywhere.
He did a really good job.
No, yeah, I had a friend who had a friend of a friend recommend he invest in Tron, and then he recommended I invest in Tron.
Now
and I believe that's worth.
Oh my gosh! Yes, Tron. Oh, oof. Sorry.
I forgive you. I'm still holding on for it. I am expecting the moon one day.
Yeah.
So everybody knows Tron is like Bitcoin for losers.
No, we're gonna make a huge profit off this. Trust me.
I hope not, because I sold all mine. I feel like an idiot now.
You should have seen the stars in Jake's eyes. Anyways, so I got caught up in quite a bit of a few different pyramid schemes, and got into some debt. I was looking at how else can I really get out of retail. I'm about 2 or 3 years after high school now, feeling like a loser. And really, what got me into wanting to proceed forward was the fact that just didn't have anything to my name, didn't have a niche, didn't have anything. And I ran across somebody that was like, "Hey, we're hiring." I was like, "Well, what do you do?" And he started talking about 3D printing, and I was like, "Oh, sweet, that's gonna be the next big thing. That sounds pretty cool. Probably won't be stepping into that, but y'all have machines on site. I could probably be a machinist." So my mind instantly went into trying to, at that point, settle. And I went on site, and if we're just being completely honest here, I was, for some reason, that was the first interview I've ever had where I showed up and I was in the parking lot trying not to throw up. Because that was the one thing that was it was hitting me hard, that I just knew something was going to change in my life.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
And so I went in, basically wasn't even an interview. They just said, "Hi, when do you want to start?" And they shook my hand and asked me what I wanted to get paid. And I just kind of threw out a number, and they said, "All right, we'll see you next week." And basically got hired as executive broom sweeping man. So...
So
We've all also been there for sure.
So when the I can't even think. Executive broom sweeping man. So what was the actual title of this position?
I think it had something to do with assembly, something to do with putting together assembly parts for AS9100 certification parts for aerospace. But really what I was doing almost 12, 14 hours a day was sweeping up chips from a machine shop. And that happened for about a good three-ish months, and something in me, my heart was just telling me, hey, you need to look into becoming a machinist. And I was like, well, that's not really what I want to do. And really just started listening to my heart. It was like, okay, I guess I'll ask about, taking some trainings, and went up to the front office where no one knew my name and said, hey, my name is Dillan Drake. I would like to take some company paid trainings to become a machinist. And they said, okay, let's do it. And they sent me off to school. And I started started doing the trainings and becoming a machinist, did my math, learned how to program a mill. And right after I got my certification, I think we're about now 6 months into me having that job. I was about 2 weeks in on the shop floor. Just basically, I got graduated from executive broom sweeping man to now a button pusher, making the same amount of money. And they came out on the shop floor and said, hey, can we meet you into the meeting room, which we only had one on site in Oklahoma. And I was like, well, that's not good.
Yeah, this is not a good sign.
So
I've never been to the meeting room, but this doesn't sound good.
No, only people who don't smell go into the meeting room. So you smell like wet coolant. So you're just walking in there and walking behind him. I'm starting to feel those bubblies again in my stomach. I'm like, what's going on? I open the door. It's HR. We have someone from corporate from 3D Systems in that room, and we have my direct boss and the head of operations in the room. And I'm like, what did I do? And they're like, hey, please have a seat. And I'm like, all right, okay. And I'm just trying not to throw up in front of all these powerful people that I have never met in my life. And they're just like, hey, we've noticed that you've done a really good job the past 6 months. You got hired in on here. And the head of operations, which Jason Dickman at the time, shout out to him. I was the only person within 3D Systems at that time, within that entire year, that took their reimbursement plan and actually worked over 12 hours a day and went to school to been promoted within 3D Systems. That evidently rang throughout HR saying that, hey, this man wants to be promoted. I instantly went from being a button pusher overnight to now I am a supervisor over my own shop.
Wow. Wait, that is insane.
Yeah.
How happy were you during
I would be lying
interview?
if I said I did not cry.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like,
okay.
Please excuse me.
I have to go scream in the bathroom.
Got promoted.
Exactly. It's like the best news. You could have just said you're not getting fired. I probably would have been really happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were.
Well, that's cool.
Go ahead.
So when you got promoted to this position, was it just like, hey, did they immediately start talking pay raise, benefits, everything that was going on? Or was this like, we're going to start talking about this over the next couple days? Or was it just like, did they give you time to like think about it, or?
Oh no. So they said, here's what we have. Here's this. You can start from where you were, which now we want to give you basically 3 times my salary now overnight.
Oh. Well,
Yeah. And they're saying, we want to give you 3 times your salary raise. Here's your benefits package. But do you have a passport? And I said, oddly enough, yes. And the same thing that made me think that one of the things that my heart was telling me, hey, I don't want to take this machining job. I don't want to take this machining class. I also don't know why I'm spending over $200 and something for a passport. Told me 3 months before I got that raise and that promotion that I needed to get my passport. When I got my passport, all this happened. They said, well, hopefully you have your passport. And I said, yes. They said, well, you're going to Belgium in a week. You're going to be gone for over 3 months for training to learn about material science just for aluminum and titanium powders, as well as how to run a 3D additive machine. So we need you to be back and we know how to run this shop in and of itself and train other people. So, dude, it was just balls of the wall.
Wow.
I was gonna say you're like blowing my mind right now because like when I'm thinking about, did you ever think you're like, oh, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the next day you're gonna be in Belgium? Was that like, did that ever cross your mind?
No, dude, I was so scared. I barely even left the state at that time. So it was everything in me just to be like, okay, this is normal. This is normal. It was not normal. But I was so glad I did, and I'm so glad I listened to my heart, and I stepped out, and I took that risk, and it led to where I am now. But that's just the very beginning of that. Yeah.
Wow,
that's great.
insane.
That's just hard work and desire
yeah.
to move forward to go. I mean, broom sweeper to captain of the ship just right now. That's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely been kind of a common theme in our last couple episodes, where it's been a lot about people taking the self-drive, self-initiative to like step out there and say, "Hey, I want this," and then once you take that first step, it kind of seems like more and more doors start to open up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
that's one of the things that I was really happy that I did was even in the face of just seeing that and like wanting just to throw up in my mouth and run away. I was just like, no, just get fired to your face and then walk out. Just just deal with it. So
get fired like a man.
Exactly. Don't you walk out on these people right now.
So tell us about your trainings in Belgium. Like what was all included in those?
Trying to understand very harsh dialects. That was a huge portion. The first week I was there, I just had to learn what they were actually trying to say to me, not really even understanding what they were trying to teach me. So I'm pretty sure we went over what they were trying to teach me a good 3 or 4 times while I was there. But really, how powders reacted, and basically making sure condensate, your removal of condensate, which is basically the residue whenever a laser then hits the powder. It's basically extremely reactive to any surroundings. So if air hits it, it can ignite instantly. So just learning how to properly and safely just recycle that, as well as how to run and code a 3D printer and how to basically orientate and support parts. So that took a lot. So roughly around 3 months the first time, and then I had to go back again for more coding expertise for another, I believe, 2 months for I think two years after that. So.
Okay, so is Belgium like the home base for 3D systems?
That is the home base for the company Layerwise. So 3D Systems never really had a in when it came to the metals for 3D printing metal. They ended up buying out Layerwise. So shout out to them. Amazing guys. They're phenomenal. They're some of the best people I've worked with. Actually, a good portion of them I'm working with now at EOS. They ended up leaving and working here in Germany. So they went from Belgium to Germany. But yeah, it's just that's just where Layerwise is currently at. And that's where they were running production for medical parts for basically what we already ran in K2, as well as quite a few other orthopedic parts.
Okay. Wow. All right, so after you get that training, come back from that amazing 3-month vacation in Belgium, and were you still at the 3D Systems location in Oklahoma? Because I know they also have a 3D Systems, a big plant out in Colorado somewhere.
Mm-hmm. So when I came back, I worked with 3D Systems for about 4 years. Running the prototyping and production lab there in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right around the end of the 4-year mark, I was hearing that they were going to be transferring to Colorado. So all of their production and prototyping, rapid prototyping, would then be transferred into Colorado. That being said, I was trying to see, hey, is that someplace we want to live? Is that something we want to do at the moment? Currently, wife was like, hey, I want to get my master's. I was like, well, where do you want to go? And she's like, well, I'll apply for Harvard and I'll apply for Johns Hopkins. I was like, cool, you just let me know. The bad thing was she was accepted to both. So
Oh,
like,
still had to make a decision then. Yeah.
yeah, I was just like, well, dang it. So what do we do? And I again went back to just listening to my heart and being like, okay, what do we have to do? And my heart was just like, hey, take this random engineering guy that came in to fix our machine out to lunch. And I'm like, I'm Jake's gonna call BS on this, but I don't really like. I like to keep to myself for the most part.
Yeah, that's such a lie.
If I don't know you, I like to keep to myself for the most part. And I was just like, for some reason, I was like, take this guy out to lunch right now. And I was like, ugh. So I went ahead and I took him out to lunch, finding out that he's actually a really cool guy. And I was like, hey, do you know of anyone that's hiring that maybe has one of these machines that we have here on site? And he's like, matter of fact, I do. There's a place called K2M in Virginia. And I was like, really? Question mark. And he's like, yeah, why don't you hit them up? They just bought this, and I'm supposed to be on site sometime. I did not know at this part that they weren't going to be installing this machine ever. But he said, we will be installing this machine here pretty quickly. You should give them a call. And that kind of leads up until my wife now is just saying, okay, well, let's go to Johns Hopkins. And I let K2M know, hey, I'm a supervisor here for 3D Systems, and I heard you bought a machine. You need someone to run it. So I ended up taking a kind of a promotion. So I no longer had the supervisor title. I had more of a lead title, but ended up getting a promotion out of that lead. I don't know how that worked, but it worked. But yeah, I just basically emailed them and they said, when do you want to start?
Wow.
Yeah.
Your interviews have gone much smoother than mine have.
I was gonna say, like, everything.
My interviews don't go like that.
These experiences you're having, I feel like if I didn't know you, I would seriously question them.
Hey, when I went on site for the K2M quote unquote interview, everyone just like, we're so happy that you're here. We can't wait to work with you. And I'm like, is this even an interview? And I only had one person that was difficult. They were actually asking me pretty difficult questions about additive. And I was just like, the supports are on this side, because they're asking me difficult questions, but at the same time, the questions that they were really challenging me on weren't difficult. And they were telling me that I was wrong. And I was like, I don't want to call you out during my interview, but this is wrong.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and then ended up getting hired anyway, so it worked. Wow.
I kind of want to back up to the 4 years at 3D Systems as the supervisory. So, like, what entailed in that entire position? Like, what was your what were you making? What actual 3D printer were you making it on? And then, like, what was your production capacity at that facility?
So what we had on site was 4 ProX 320s.
Okay.
That is the layer-wise machines, and we had 2 Phoenix machines. If you ever want to, I guess, go into 3D additive, I highly suggest not ever investing into Phoenix ever. It's terrible.
Shout out to Phoenix.
Shout out to
That's Phoenix. Where I live. And then, so what kind of additive machines are those? Are those like laser sinterers, or?
Yep.
I'm just a noob.
Sintering.
Okay.
Yep. So it's just a cold powder process, and then you're basically welding the powder to the plate, and then just building your Z height.
Okay.
But I guess while I was on site there, I guess a few of the things that I was doing was really taking a significant amount of prototyping orders and trying to juggle prototyping orders with aerospace production as well as government production prototype quote unquote. So it's a little bit of a mixture there when it comes to the
Okay.
government portion. The difficult part of that was the fact that we didn't have different standards when it came to prototyping and production. So whenever we ran production, the same type of quality would have to be then basically followed through on the prototyping side. So if we're wanting to stay within a plus or minus 5 thou on production, that means whenever we run a brand new part for the first time for prototyping, and we only have to run it one time, and we only get to run it one time, we have to stay within tolerance of plus or minus 5, regardless how large that part is. So it makes for quite difficult situations.
Yeah, I can see how that could cost a lot of money down the line.
Yeah. Good news is you mess up enough, you learn a lot.
Yeah, that's the positive outlook of life right there.
So in this position, were you like directly running one of these machines, or were you just managing the people who were running these machines, implementing the code to print whatever part you needed?
Yeah, so the first 2.5 months I took over, I made it very clear that I could not do it myself. I ended up getting a team of roughly 7 right off the bat. Basically, we had technicians that flipped the machines, cleaned the machines, went out and took those plates that had excess parts, and then EDM'd the parts off the plate, and then machined the plates down so that the way they could be reused. Okay. And basically, I, on the other hand, really screened everything that came through just to make sure it made sense for additive, as well as basically orchestrating what's going into the machine, how it's going into the machine, powder ordering, ordering of new post-processing tools. If we're looking at having another order of argon or what have you, just making sure the upkeep and whatnot in my shop was up to date and up to par with where it needed to be to keep up the standards.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. What is your, like, what would be the production capacity for those machines that you have? Like, if you were just running, say, the same part, you weren't doing any like prototype parts, first prints, you have a standard part, you've ran it a couple times, what kind of production capacity could we reach with those printers?
Ooh, it's a really good question. So
does it all depend, I guess, on what you're printing, how big it is?
Yes. So what we're printing, how big it is, what the tolerance level is. So if the tolerance level is, quite open, we're not talking about plus or minus 5 thou, we're looking at plus or minus 10 thou. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a snap and play portion. You could maybe run through an application sprint and just basically redesign the part to then be stacked on top of itself to really utilize the Z height of the build. So that way you're not just utilizing the production volume for X and Y.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So it really kind of depends on what you're building, but depending on how much time and money you have for to look at running production, you could really utilize the entirety of the build volume, no matter how big or how small your part is.
Okay. So I guess along with that question, like you were talking about, you would like screen if it was. If additive was a good manufacturing process for that, like when you're looking to screen something for additive, what are you looking for?
So I look at basically 2 factors. Is it technical, and is it economic? Is it economical? Technical, does it fit? Basically, all the kids know this. If it fits, it sits. If it makes it within the machine, we're good to go, right? It can at least fit within the machine. I guess something else that's within that, does it meet current material requirements? Does it meet current quality requirements? That would all be under the technical perspective of what we're looking at that would make, I guess, the go, no-go gauge for additive. When we're looking at it from the economic perspective, we're really looking at it from how much quantity, I guess, the annual quantity we're wanting to run for the specific part. And then also, how much does it currently cost traditionally? So if we're looking at, running a part that is, just a really small part, and it's within $1.50. But now we're looking at running it in titanium on this printer, and now it's, over $100. Obviously, it doesn't make a lot of economic sense to move forward with.
Right.
So these are things that you have to kind of go back and forth and make sure, okay, hey, this doesn't necessarily make long-term sense unless you're just wanting, a one-off part.
So while you were there, how much, like what percentage of your work was consistent orders, like on remakes of parts, and then what percentage was just like a one-off prototype or a one-time purchase?
I would say a good 40% was production and a good 60% was prototyping. So production.
Okay, so still majority prototyping, which would make sense, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just rapid prototyping. That's what we were known for in the Tulsa area, was just quick, rapid prototyping. That's what the shop was also used for their machining. 3D Systems went through a portion of time where they were promoting a lot of machining work as well. So they're just trying to add that within their marketing.
Okay. This is, I guess, kind of a technical, or maybe not a technical question about the different powders that go in the machines. Like, all right, so there's aluminum or titanium. I wanted to know, like, if you knew, like, what is the price for titanium powder or aluminum powder? And then where do you buy these titanium powders from?
So you can buy them from a number of different places. Almost any 3D printed or any 3D printing company is going to provide you with their powder. Right. You're most likely going to get a better deal if you're already buying the machine from them, because then you get a special contract, and then it renews every basically 3 to 5 years. It goes with your depreciation. So basically, what I would recommend is that if you're going to go into production and you already have kind of a niche market that you're wanting to hit within, I would say just go with whatever go with whatever provider that's creating the machine and is selling the powder, because you're probably going to get the best deal overall.
Gotcha.
There's not a lot of variance between brands as far as like overall print quality.
Yes, so that kind of goes into that as well. So depending on what kind of machine you're wanting, if you're wanting a quick, let's just say you're just wanting to run a plethora of different prototypes, just one little one-off prototypes, doesn't necessarily need to be within a very tight tolerance. There's a machine out there that isn't necessarily laser sintering, but basically it's a kind of, it fuses the powder together and it bakes it. And having that, it basically builds roughly around 10 to 20 times faster than a DMLS printer. So there's different portions. It's really like, what are you wanting to achieve in your organization? If you're wanting to go overall, quality, obviously EOS, shout out to EOS or HP. You didn't hear that from me. Great quality companies. Honestly, we're just looking at it. They have some of the best overall tolerances kept within their machines. So it really depends on what kind of surface finish you're wanting to hit outside of having a kind of a shot peen post process, but having a very smooth surface is going to depend on your parameter settings, the machine that you're currently using, as well as the powder you're using. So the finer the powder, the normally the smoother the surface finish.
Okay. Interesting. I wouldn't have never thought that the powder would need to be super. I guess it kind of makes sense that the powder would have to be small for a smooth finish, but
I guess that was kind of what I was wondering with those different powder types is what is the price difference between those?
So let's just say I have to look at this from the business goggles here. If you're looking at it and you're wanting to build production, this is all I can really speak to, because if you're building a prototype, you're just going to lose your head with how much you're going to be spending in powder. But let's just say you have a utilization of 5,000 hours per machine annually. You could roughly look at purchasing per kilogram for a titanium Ti-65 grade 5 powder for roughly around 218 to 225 a kilogram.
225 a kilogram. Okay. So when you say grade 5 powder, what are the different grades? Is that just the fineness of the powder?
So different grades have different quality settings. So basically, grade 5 is really useful for aerospace. You have grade 23. You have multiple different other grades that are either specified for the healthcare organizations, aerospace, automotive, and what have you. So there's quite a significant amount of different grades that kind of across the board. Same thing when it comes to stainless steel. So you have a 316 stainless steel. You also have a stainless steel that is like a CX material, which is really good for casting. So It just really depends on what your application is and what you're trying to achieve. And that will also depend on how fast you build per that application.
Gotcha. Okay. At your time at 3D Systems, I guess, like, overall, was there anything you kind of wish you learned more along the way, like to get more experience in, or do you feel like you grew in every way possible at that specific time?
Well, I would be lying if I said that. I think I could have definitely figured out how to have more customer engagement or better customer engagement at 3D Systems. I was already kind of diving into a consultant role. Basically, what that was a very random, hey, Dylan, we have a customer that is looking at spending over $1 million in a week. Can you go on site in Colorado tomorrow and talk to him? And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll do that. And I just basically went with a regular shirt, my sneakers, what I would wear at the shop, and just go on site, open my laptop, and tell all their engineers what they're doing wrong. But not having and not having any actual like understanding of that's not how you really talk to people, and that's not how you create relationships across the board, and just like building that customer engagement. I wish that I would have taken that a little bit more seriously and really stepped into that consulting role then, instead of just being so focused on getting back to the shop to then run production and get flustered at many other things.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, moving there, you told us the story about how you found K2M, and then, how you met your favorite engineering intern. That would be me, for everyone listening.
Matt?
Oh, that is so mean. Oh, that's mean. That is hateful. So, I guess tell us a little bit about, I want to skip your position at K2. Tell us a little bit about your lead role as the additive consultant at K2M.
So K2M was I don't want to say a large stepping stone, but definitely a stepping stone in my career of understanding how business should be ran, and understanding that how leadership can present themselves and run effectively. So that was kind of my first step into understanding how you can actually start to talk to people and really gain more information, the type of information that could be useful to really move forward with. All right, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. It's kind of like the go, no go gauge into
Right.
Are we really effectively listening? Are we effectively spending a lot of our efforts on the right things rather than the wrong things? But I guess to really answer your question, my overall goal in being hired at K2 was to set up the prototyping lab. The first 6 months, 8 months, I spent every waking moment planning, drawing out the area, really getting a lot of quotes and for different argon providers in the area, how we could safely and effectively remove waste from that specific department. excuse me, and just really trying to make sure all my my I's were dotted and my T's were crossed before the machine ended up getting basically installed on site. And I guess, as everyone might be guessing, that never happened.
It was a very sad day that I saw, hey, we have this awesome printer and it's still in the box.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I guess I remember some of this from talking with Jake, but K2M's goal was they were using somebody to manufacture 3D printed parts, and so then they're like, hey, why don't we cut the middleman out, buy a 3D printer, and print it ourselves, right? Was kind of their thought process.
Yeah, so the short-term goal was to just get the prototypes finished in-house and have them all ran in-house, since they were spending a ridiculous amount of money and just having those prototypes built with a vendor. The long-term goal, which was roughly around 2 years out, if we were to have that the prototyping lab up, was to then have me run their production on all of their current parts. So that was something that I was looking forward to, that I was really hoping that was going to take off. But that just wasn't necessarily something that was in the book after about a year and a half in. So is what it is. But that was something that I was really looking forward to. But you know what, it ended up working out in the end.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the transition from K2M to EOS.
Oh boy. So I get everyone can kind of understand. So 2 months prior to me having a meeting, Eric Major, amazing guy, ended up calling everyone into the big meeting room, and everyone gets in there and basically just comes up on stage doing a quick cartwheel and saying, "We got bought."
He did a cartwheel?
That's how we viewed it.
Oh,
So
gotcha.
he probably didn't do that, but everyone was already so high on emotion that it was just, he might as well. But he just basically got on stage and said, "Hey guys, we're basically being bought out by Stryker. This is a bueno thing. Everyone needs to be excited about this." And me being the gullible person I am, I was like, you know what? He's right. We need to be positive. Fast forward 2 months, I get a meeting invite from Mike at 6 a.m. in the morning for a meeting with HR for 7. I don't know if anyone is listening to this has ever had a meeting with HR that early in the morning, but I was trying to trick myself into thinking that it was just like the 3D systems type of meeting.
I'm getting promoted.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, you know what, this could be good. This could be good. And I walk into the HR area, and she's like, "She'll see you in a second." And I'm like, "Okay." And I might have went out of my way to get a nice dress shirt and whatnot, just to make sure that I didn't make the same mistake twice. And my boss walks in, and he looks at me, and we make eye contact, and he instantly looks down, and I just whisper under my breath, "Oh man, this is gonna suck." And and we just walked back there together. He's just hanging his head low, and I'm like, "All right, okay, here it comes." And they just lay it on me, and they said, "Hey, this is basically, we kind of knew this was coming." And I'm like, "You didn't tell me?" Like, it just kind of like came out.
Why didn't you tell me?
Shout out to Mike Prosser. He's a cool guy, great guy. But you didn't let me go. Anyways, he just basically, "Hey man, you know, this is what's gonna happen, blah blah blah." And I'm like, I understand, right? We didn't get their the 3D printer up. Stryker, which is the person that was buying K2, already had a full 3D printing lab up in New York. So I understood. I could see it. I could see the writing on the wall. I was just hoping that I could kind of transition into other areas of Stryker at that time. But at that time, I didn't have my bachelor's, so it was kind of if you don't have that, you're nobody, no matter how much knowledge you have. Excuse me. So
Those darn pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize you didn't have your bachelor's at that time.
No, dude.
Wait, so that
Yeah,
whole time
I just got it.
Wow. Dylan, you were blowing my mind. I did not realize that whole time as supervisor at 3D Systems and then at K2M you didn't have your bachelor's.
Mm-mm.
That brings a whole new light to things. So how did you feel? Man, that must have been so great. Like, just out of high school, supervisor, traveling to Belgium to get trained. You must have felt just on top of the world.
Yeah, I was definitely lying to myself saying, look at all those people that have degrees.
What idiots.
Look at all those silly people.
Yeah.
And then you put on a nice shirt to walk down to HR at 7 in the morning. And you're like, dang it.
Hit me. I'm an idiot. Nah, so the whole time, this is roughly around the same time Jake and I met each other at K2. I, again, had that same feeling in my heart. Hey, you need to start going to school. And I'm like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go back. And it's like, I don't care. So I started doing it. And that was another thing that kind of led into me getting to where I am now. But so I'm at HR. They're letting me go. And I'm like, well, this sucks. And I'm like, so do I just leave? And they're like, well, you could stay on for an extra 3 months full time, and then your severance kicks in. And I'm like, hell yeah. Let's just do that.
Yeah, like a guaranteed, like, hey, 3 months from now, you don't have to worry about any of the work you do. Okay, cool. I'll sit here and, like, there's just not a lot of stress when there's a finish line. It's like being an intern.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was so happy when they said that. I was like, so you'll let me stay for 3 months before my severance kicks in? And they're like, yeah, like, you moved here from Oklahoma. That's the least we could do. And I was like, you're right. Instantly put my nose up. Yeah, you're right.
That is the least you could do.
Oh, but yeah, that was a very difficult time being away from family and then just being stuck and just kind of looking at, okay, what are the options that are in the area? What can I do? And just not being a lot, on the East Coast at that time, that I was like, man, we just moved here less than, roughly two years ago, and now we're having to leave. So it was a difficult time.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because at that time, your wife was still going to school then, right?
Yeah, so she was going on site into downtown DC, basically every Monday through Thursday, full time, just jamming out.
Gotcha. Wow. So how did you, from that, getting that layoff, staying positive and then, keep looking forward to, all right, what's next for the Dillan Drake?
Well, just want to get very strong here. Is God didn't take me to the East Coast to fail me. So I knew that coming right off the bat, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not here to just fall on my face. So what else is there? And just kept my head up and just kept updating my resume, looking out. I found a few different places that are within Baltimore that I was looking at the time. And funny story about that is the company that I was looking at in Baltimore, they were saying, hey, we would like to hire, we were looking at hiring you, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, whoa, you don't have your degree. Because I was looking at becoming their supervisor, which that was going to be like $160,000 job a year. And I'm like, awesome, with like 10% bonus on top of that. I was like, I'm in.
Wow.
So call me. And they're like, yeah, you don't have a degree. I was like, who else are you going to find? I was talking to their HR person. I was like, who else are you going to find that has as much experience using those same machines and that has production and prototyping experience? He's like, I feel you, but yeah, the owners, they're not going to buy it. I'm like, okay. So
Wow.
yeah, just quick note on that. My first trip to a customer site working at EOS, I get a call from that HR manager pleading with me to go back and get to take the job.
Wow.
Wow.
Did you
Yeah, I
rub
was
it in
like,
his face?
Just
dude, I was like, you're a little too late, man. I'm already moved to Texas. I'm not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
yeah. Who sings that? Demi Lovato. And the wise words of Demi Lovato. Sorry, not
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, but it was a kind of a slap to my face. Like, you could have gave me that job while I was there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it is frustrating for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
But-
then, how did you get a hold of EOS?
So the same guy who taught me, and basically was my very, very, very first intern at 3D Systems. He spoke up. He was like, they were basically trying to figure out if they wanted to hire someone else who had their master's degree that was in additive manufacturing, or me, who doesn't at that time have a degree at all.
You are
And-
blowing me away with your interviews. I want to tell you right now. I have never
Yeah, it's just
heard of so much. I don't know. Luck. I don't know what it is.
wizardry. It's wizardry.
Wizardry. But I'm basically I'm on site, and they're like, "Hey, we would like to talk to you." And basically, I got the interview because I knew Austin, and Austin was my very first intern. And Austin
Okay.
gave me a lot of crap the first year, or the first like month he was teaching me before I had to go into to Belgium, or the first 2 weeks before I went to Belgium. And
Right.
he left to go finish his master's at that time. And I got back in touch with him, blah blah blah, and I put him down as a reference. I got the interview, and I'm on site, and my current boss, Fabian, really liked me, and I was like, "Cool, we're good." And then the head supervisor was basically really grilling me, and I was like, "This is the first time this has happened." Like, really just coming after me, and I'm like, Dylan's not used to this. Dylan's used to walking in and just, I came here to like, where do I sign? And this guy's really giving it to me. And I walked away not feeling like I was deserving of like Lay's potato chips, because I was like, this isn't going to happen. So I basically just had a really fun time in Austin for the rest of the weekend that I was in town. And then I go home, and Kimber was like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "Terrible." And she's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yep." I was like, "It's probably not going to happen at all." And 3 days later, I get an email saying, here's your offer." And I was like, "No way."
Wow.
It basically came down to me knowing someone who knew I was going to be a team player, and that I've talked to, and just really making connections and going out of my comfort zone to then take those people out for lunch, and just really getting to know someone really face to face, and getting to know their personalities. So that's what got me to where I got this current job, was me going out of my comfort zone and getting to talk to and getting to know people and talking to them one-on-one.
I was gonna say, we've kind of had with even our past interviews with like one of our past guests, Matt Kark, and his photography, and then Shane Frankenfield and Materials joining, and how each of them got to where they're at now. It's a lot about the people you know, and then like showing the initiative to reach out to go actually get those places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure, man. Just really jumping out on a limb and just being okay to fail. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is understanding that you might fail, but that doesn't mean you yourself are a failure if you don't come out on top.
I think that's a great way of
Good.
putting it.
That's good. Yeah.
I got roughly 32 rejection emails before I got the acceptance email from EOS.
Man, I would see. I like, even after when I graduated and I applied and I applied and I applied, I just got, I don't know. I get down after a while after getting so many rejections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was something that was it was kind of hitting me, but I I didn't have a moment or any time in my life to really have a pity party for myself at all. I had to pick myself up and go, either it's gonna work or it isn't, and I don't have an option for it not to work.
Right.
But
Right.
definitely after I got that job, I was like, man, I got a lot of rejections.
38 doesn't. I don't want to be pity partying over here, but I definitely got more than 38
in a month.
Oh, maybe not in a month. My spring semester, it was like every day. Jake and I would just like we'd eat lunch and be like, "Hey, how many did you get today?" I got 4. How many did you get? Only 2. Not a bad day.
Oh. Yeah, I could definitely see that definitely coming out of college and not having anything really at that time. That would, yeah. No, I'm good.
Well, yeah, just no experience, and then you just have to apply to a wide plethora of jobs. You can't, you don't have anything to kind of narrow your search, so you just have to cast your net wide and hope something lands, which leads to more rejections for sure.
Caught a lot of dead fish.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of dead fish. All right. So, tell us about your position now. What all does that entail?
Well, due to COVID, what I'm doing now is really all virtual, but I'm basically acting on behalf of our customer interface and really trying to find any solution whatsoever for the pain points that our customers are bringing forth when it comes to additive. So again, it kind of comes back to a little bit of the part screening and selection. How do we find those low-hanging fruits that are within their organization that they can run production in now that will not only be something that makes their corporation look cool, but ends up saving them significant amount of money, not just in the long run, but short term. It makes sense overall. So not just looking at let's rebuild or redesign or re-engineer this one part. Let's re-engineer all these 5 parts into one part. Now we reduce lot size, overall weight for this part overall. That's going to end up saving this huge airplane a significant amount of money every year due to the fact that we just took a little bit of time now to plan. So a lot of business casing and strategic planning, basically.
So, like as part of EOS, do companies like hire you and then pay you a contract fee, or is it just like EOS is the one paying your salary and then they like write up a contract with these companies and then bring you in to analyze, part placement, material, how to make things faster and more efficient and cheaper?
Mm-hmm. So how this works is so I work, I guess, in an organization within an organization. So EOS is the total umbrella. The organization within EOS is called Additive Minds. So that is the consulting group within EOS. Additive Minds acts as a nonprofit for machine sales. So we basically come up alongside our customers and lock arms with them and try to make sure that we have all their worries basically ironed out before they purchase the machine, so they know how to, 1, utilize the technology, and 2, go straight into production without having any downtime.
Okay. I see how they did that as a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm. So they're quote unquote. They still have to pay for some application, depending on what we're trying to achieve now, because sometimes it doesn't always work, which is great that, we have such a transparent organization that, hey, we don't want to sell you something that isn't going to work long term and then lose a customer later. We'd rather tell you now, fail early, understand that it's not going to work for this specific application, and then let's find something different.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Fail early and fail often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cole, go ahead. What were you saying?
Oh, I guess I was kind of wondering, like, what. So let's go before COVID. What's your day-to-day like currently? Like, you're you're helping these people, these customers with their machines and getting solutions to their problems. Are you traveling to them, or were you centrally located in Austin the whole time, or kind of what was that like?
So a good portion of my time was set here in Austin. Basically, what my day-to-day looked like before pre-COVID was really being on the phone all day, talking to specific different customers, and basically planning for different webinars or speeches that I would then give at ASTM, Rapid, and what have you. So there's multiple different other conferences that I would also go and give speeches and different talks towards. When I'm not doing that, I'm then going on site either in correlation with sales or before sales, just to make sure that our customers have everything they're needing before they make a purchase. Just basically talking over, all right, do you have a roadmap of success for these specific parts? Do you have any questions about materials? Are we on the same page as far as, is there something different that you're wanting to achieve? So one of our largest customers that I cannot talk about on air is they're wanting to create a plant that basically multiple other companies can come and use that are actually competitors. But what they're trying to do is increase the technology surrounding that. So all that information is shared on site. So there's no IP. It's just basically all the best minds from all these other organizations are now coming together at this additive location and sharing new ideas and just really promoting technology, which is really cool. So there's different areas that aren't necessarily always production or prototyping. It's just really promoting, sustainability or the technology overall, whether it be rockets or healthcare or automotive. So there's plenty of different, ideas or strategies that companies would want to, approach EOS with that we've definitely worked within.
Well, that's a pretty neat concept of just building a place where they could all go to promote growth and technology in additive. Mm-hmm. So I guess, you being in the additive field, what do you see for the future of additive? Like, do you think it's just still, because I felt like when I was in K2M and seeing what they were doing with additive, and then even Cole and I at our engineering school, it was like very much, we built our 3D printer and, we were just, printing PLA plastic or ABS, and like we could see like a rapid growth happening. Do you think that rapid growth is just going to keep increasing? I guess, where do you see it going in the future?
I see it increasing as far as the technology, and I also see the price within the next, 5 to 10 years drastically decreasing, because I think we're getting a lot better within our supply chain of figuring out how to build these better and faster, kind of like the automotive. When Ford ended up building cars mass quantities, ended up finding out how to do that cheaper and keeping somewhat of the quality, given the fact that you like Ford or not. But they're pretty. That's the kind of standpoint a lot of these companies are taking right now, because this will end up being the new, mill. Obviously, there's going to be drastic changes and differences between them, and I think milling will always be something that will be needed. But I think in the future, the next 5 to 10 years, additive technologies will definitely, become much better with its quality. It'll be able to change parameter settings on the fly for things that need to either be self-supporting without, added supports to reduce overall lead time for post-processing or what have you, as well as being able to build significantly faster, which would normally take, when we're just talking specifically for metals, to utilize the full Z height of a metals machine, we're looking at roughly a runtime of almost 7 days. And I see that getting down to roughly 4 to 8 hours within the next 5 years. So it's going to be a lot faster, and I think it's going to be significantly cheaper.
Huh. That'll change so much. That'll change so many industries if 3D printing becomes a cheaper alternative to milling. Like, if there's significant parts you can make cheaper on a 3D printer than you can using kind of the more traditional means now. That'll change a lot. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to change, especially having different opportunities. Like if we're just talking about government a few months ago, is like the government maybe having an opportunity to then have a 3D printer that's, if you're needing a specific part on a different location, whether it be something that is level or not, maybe having a printer that could build off level that's within, kind of like a C-130, if you will. That would be wonderful. I think that's something that's definitely going to be something that they're going to be looking into. We're having a basically like a 18-wheeler with a 3D printer on the back, being able to build on site rather than having to ship different parts from location to location. So it's definitely something I see in the future that it's going to drastically change how we look at because moving forward with buying new product. As well as kind of instead of having, I guess, a different viewpoint of what warehousing is. So when we think of warehousing, we think of having a huge square footage space that holds multiple parts that have been built for the last 5 to 6 years, but only have a life shelf time of 8 years. Now, what we can do is scan each and every one of those parts. Once they die out, we don't need that square footage anymore. We can use that for something else. We have a scan part that has a process and procedure for that part specifically, and we can build that part on demand. So spare parts on demand rather than having a large square footage space to house parts that might not ever be used. So it becomes more environmentally friendly as well.
Well, I didn't even think about that, but that's a really valid point. If each part has a scan process and then you can put that in the machine and the machine prints it and your lead times aren't super long. Yeah, that would save so much in warehouse. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool to think about.
Yeah. That's something that, I mean, Amazon, if you're listening, you just have all your other, your little areas within Amazon. So instead of it being shipping from California to New York, you just have your New York location build that part on demand instead of having such a large square footage and then creating a significant amount of waste. You're reducing that significantly. So I see that as being something that could end up being very helpful as far as environment and sustainability, as well as saving them a lot of time and money in the future, because every square foot ends up being some type of money, whether that be up high or whatnot, using forklifts to get to where you're needing. But now you're adding in lights, you're adding in forklifts, now you're adding in
AC
equipment
to cool the building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things that come into contact with that, rather than just having a smaller, maybe 1/4 the size of the square footage, to just have something that is there when needed.
Wow. Yeah, that is really something to think about. That now that I'm invest in 3D printing, everyone.
Yeah.
Tron.
No, yeah, not Tron. Oh goodness. All right, so I got 2 more questions. First, or one of the questions we always kind of like to ask our interviewees. So if you were coming out of school, you're young Dillan Drake in high school, looking at the bright future ahead and thinking, man, I wonder what would be the typical average salary for someone in additive manufacturing in like positions like yours. What would that outcome be?
In my position as a AM consultant, you can go anywhere between 80 to 115.
Wow, man, I should switch jobs.
That's plus bonus. So bonus on top of that, and housing and car allowance.
I'm kidding on the housing. Switch job.
I'm kidding on the housing.
Oh. I just turned in my resignation just in that little time there. I was planning on getting free housing.
All right, and then my I guess my last question, unless Cole has any, is our typical what no one told you. So along this way, the whole process, going through all these different careers, and there could be multiple different answers to this question, but what do you wish someone told you looking back, that would have made your life a lot easier in these positions?
Okay. What I wish, someone would have told me coming in and basically starting out trying to figure out what I wanted to do is it's okay not to know what you want to do, and it's okay to fail. Whether you're going to fall on your face multiple different times, because I only told you guys, the times that I just walked in and I actually kind of I followed my heart, and I sought after things that were a little bit out of my reach, but I had really good feelings about it. There was multiple other areas, just like the pyramid schemes, that really fell on my face, but I really wish someone would have told me it's okay to fail and it's okay to learn. Just because you failed doesn't mean you yourself are a failure. So understanding that and having don't ever lose your drive and find your niche. So understanding that it's okay to fail and finding that niche, just like additive manufacturing for me. I got to where I am. I got this title before I got my bachelor's degree. So
yeah, that is crazy.
And I'm making a decent salary before I ever had my bachelor's degree. And it's just like having the understanding is that it's okay for that, but it's also okay for people that are wanting to get their degrees. I think that it's very smart to go to school, and I think it's very smart to understand that, you're investing into your future by doing that. I will never look down upon that. And I really wish before I did that, I would have went to school, because then by the same time, I could have still met the same people and got to where I am, maybe a bit sooner. So that's what I would say. What I didn't hear, what I wish I would have on my end.
Gotcha. Hey, well, no, I think that's honestly a great point, knowing that you can fail, and that just because you do fail in something, that doesn't mean you personally are a failure. I think that's extremely important for everyone to hear, because multiple times in my life trying different things, I have failed, and at some points in those I think, well, all right, this must be a reflection on myself, but it's always important to know that it's not a reflection on yourself, and you can improve, and you can keep going. I know someone who says you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's another valuable thing that goes right along with that failure is you might not know something and you'll fail, but then you know it for the next time.
100%. I always had to ask myself every time I felt bad, and whenever I fell on my face, and I felt that, I was like, hey, this sucks. I'm not worthy of this. Well, why am I feeling bad that I'm saying that? Well, I'm feeling bad because I'm saying that because I don't believe it. I don't believe that at all. I know, you yourself, whenever you're thinking that, you already know it's a lie. So, right. Get yourself off the ground and keep going at it.
Yep, exactly. Cole, do you got any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Thanks for coming on the podcast. This was eye-opening and very, very interesting.
Yeah,
really
everyone. This was Dillan Drake, an additive manufacturing consultant. We thank you for listening in, and please come join us again next week. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Dillan.
Appreciate it, guys.